it. So I'm actually using the meeting function of Zoom and not the webinar function. So
Okay.
anyway, that's when it's not going live here, the option shows up. It's only when we
Okay.
go live that the option doesn't show up. So Jennifer, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I've had similar issues. I've just mailed you back there. I use Zoom a lot for readings. So when I've been trying to invite people, particularly this last 24 hours, Darth, bless him, off the back of the show, reached out for reading, and bless him, I've had to go to and fro, changing with him, and said, I'm so sorry.
Uh,
Because it's just been, every time I've been trying to invite him, it's just either kicking me out or just not, the invitation link's just not working for him. So yeah, there's something very strange going on there. Very strange.
Very strange, as Teresa says. Ain't technology grand?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the curse. Hey, Bosto, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Um, and we don't let the technology rule us; we rule the technology. So,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
and that's very true. And I think we can get ourselves really worked up sometimes about things that I tend to feel from an energetic level. I know I can make them worse, by getting wound up because of my energy, because of us all being energy, and these little babies in front of us being energy too, and using electricity just in very similar ways. I think I've witnessed it, that I can often break through small challenges with tech, by
Mhm.
centering and calming down again. And I've tested it out, gotten aggravated again just to see, and I've seen the response happen, on screen, or some technical issue coming up. So yeah, I think we've just got to relax, and whatever's going on with it's going on.
Well, I can tell you this. It's interesting how we as supposedly higher intelligent beings that actually have the bodies, how we identify now with the internet as a personification. Um, my wife and I make uh, light of the fact that when you start seeing what's happened in the times of ancient Greece and Rome, they had the oracles, the
Yeah.
Oracle of Delphi, and others. And why did they go to the Oracle? Because the Oracle had answers.
Mhm.
The Oracle could see into the other realms and see the potential futures. Today, humanity gives service, or I would actually say almost worship, to the greatest oracle. Um, we may have created it, but something else possesses it. You think about the search engine Google.
Yeah.
It now is the memory of us.
Yeah, and don't you find that, what an interesting thing for you to say, and this is why I love how you say things, because the dangers in that is when the oracles, if you look back to tribes that still exist today, outside of any reliance upon the technical issues that lots of people have been reporting upon, they're there. And even before they've left, the next generation has already been getting trained up.
Yeah.
And because it's familial, there's a trust there, that the familial trust, the grandparent like love that any oracle within any tribe would have naturally for the people that they serve, um, is far safer to me, because of that inherent emotional and physical and mental interlocking with the people that they serve, that they want the best, even down to the point where, if you go right down to the brass knuckles of it all, of that, even to the point of they rely on the best being experienced by that village, i.e. food production, supplement production within that food, because they directly are impacted by that too. When we've experienced all this tech, which has given so many gifts, yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I agree.
it's so open to dependability, whereas children amongst a physical person who they've grown up loving and respecting are constantly learning. The next generations are learning from that place of real collective prosperity, because everybody is much more directly reliant on another. The tech that we have, the oracle that we have, takes so many steps away from that, and without any face to it, without any endearing hugs to it, without any endearing care as that grandparent, that oracle gets old, we trust so much, and we get complacent in that when we're not able to access it the way we used to be able to access it, instead of that person then having the next generation automatically already stepping in the tribe to take that space as they slowly step back from that space, we are in the blind, aren't we? We're wondering who's controlling it, who's managed to buy up this, who's managed. It's faceless,
It is.
but it's very much, it's not agendaless, and it's very hard to dig back to that agenda. So where we have lost that locality in the tribe like mentality and the generation coming up, we have these faceless beings creating this technology to take the place of what we would have as a very loving face that we all grew up with and loved and adored and respected, yet they're only passing down that mantle to the very select few. And what agenda does this next generation of the very select few have? And so it's one thing that I don't that I contemplate, and I don't contemplate with glee, that is happening, and that does happen, and I feel it has, for all of everything in balance, for all of that negative connotation of that, there's such positive that I can talk to you right now and get wisdom from you and listen to you when I'm busying on, or many others, and think, wow, I hadn't contemplated that, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I heard that. So it's a gift in a lot of ways, but unless we're going to continuously have this divine and sovereign root in our own right, it's not a safe place to be in. If we're not willing to continuously say, okay, that resonates with me, but does it resonate with me from a trigger point? Is it a trigger point that someone else has put in me via something else I've listened to? Or is it something real that resonates with me, and it resonates with me because it resonates with me, the core of me, the true me? And I think that's where, again, we can then go turn around again and say, okay, so there's these maybe malevolent energies behind the faceless oracle. Of course there is, but actually, how much power do they really have if each person that was listening to whatever bump comes out of it, whatever information comes out of the screen to me from it, how much power would it really have? All of this power, and would we have to be quite so concerned about it if we hadn't lost the divinity and sovereignty of thought and processing what is ours, what are trigger points that have been implanted, what are other people's agendas that we've then took up the mantle blindly following? I feel it would have a lot less power. So again, it still always comes back to the individual, doesn't it? How
Several
much power?
thoughts on that. Hey, it's interesting. I ran software companies, and it's really interesting because when you create code and then you upload it to the net, um, code takes on a life of its own. And I find it interesting, several things. I, of all the benefits that we have, that you and I can talk nearly 5,000, almost 5,500 miles from each other, multiple time zones, is remarkable. But, we did see that in 2001 and Stanley Kubrick's movie, the masterpiece that he created. I think it was in 71, 72. So here we are today using that technology that we saw projected in the past. So that tells me that either we're creating this as a homogeneous species, then it becomes interesting with all the positive points that it gives us. Are we teaching it? Every time you and I get together and we exchange thoughts, those who have the Alexa in their houses, it's and have the advanced Apple, it's monitoring your biorhythms, and it can tell
Yeah.
what you're listening to, how you are reacting from the inside. And that scares me because we're teaching it about us. And the interesting thing was, when we leave these programs to basically become self-automated, to run, to self-learn, the vast majority of them go insane. They become violent. They become narcissistic. They become demented. This is
Wow.
artificial intelligence. So when you talk about the faceless ones, it is so deep because, I don't know, does a spirit have a face?
Wow. Again, for you, a couple of points come up from that. That's amazing because I'm technically challenged.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, blissfully so.
Yeah,
I press
that's not a
button.
bad thing.
No, it's not. My brother's
No.
like you. He wrote his own code for Google too, where he was seconded there for a bit when he was very young, and he tries to explain things to me, and it just doesn't happen. I'm not wired like that. He tries, and he tells me that this laptop tells me what to do if I read it, and it doesn't. It speaks a completely different language, and I'm sure it chooses the language it wants to speak each and every time, because I swear it's not saying the same sentence even when I'm trying to do the same thing. So I have a lot of discussions with this laptop in private, that I might not want other people hearing half of the time. So, I get quite passionate with it sometimes, as passionate as I get in negativity.
Isn't that
So,
interesting that the negativity is kind of almost, ignited?
yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's because I don't understand the workings of it. And I like to understand people. I like to understand spirituality. And I never ever profess nor want to profess that I know, because I'm a Gemini. I don't ever really want to think about knowing it all, because I find the wanting to know out of the contemplation that I may do at any point in time quite boring. I like to discover, I like to dig in deeper, even into the same thoughts, to get different answers, different layers. But yeah, but the absolute lack of understanding of what is going on behind this screen, it does ignite a little bit of like laptop rage, road rage. That is odd to me, and I
yeah.
think, where did that come from? Because I just nearly threw you out the window, where
I
did
have
that
seen
come from?
people literally take laptops and throw it like a frisbee.
Oh yeah, yeah, that has happened. I mean, a couple of times my bed has caught it, and I was glad because it was my mum's laptop. And so a couple of times the bed has actually caught it in its fall. Thank goodness, because afterwards, once I namasteed it all, yeah, I wouldn't
Thank you.
have been happy. So yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, getting back to that point in that it going crazy, and there's something that touched on that in that it is a different being, in that, like you say, there's a movie way back when that you mentioned that you don't know whether it's future, past, future. They're all layered up anyway. Um, but the fact that this thing is learning, and the fact that they're putting that out there, and the fact that you will know how much further on ahead technology wise we are behind the scenes, in order for me to have this slimline laptop that can do so much more than I'll give it credit for, if it's in the right hands. You
It's a
know,
tool. It's a
it's a
tool.
tool.
Yeah, it is.
But my friend had something happen to her, and it was via Facebook, and she'd been feeling really low for months, really low. And then she got a questionnaire from Facebook itself to say, would you mind filling out this questionnaire? How have you been feeling over the last so many weeks? What emotions brought this up in you? And then at the end of it, it said, because she has the 5,000 followers, I think that's the maximum you can have on there. So it said we selected people with high followings of people, and we've been using certain types of posts to invoke certain reactions. When she went back over her Facebook, she realized that it had been, puppies being abused, animal abuses, things that are very sad and emotionally provoking. Now, she rescues animals. So you wonder how much of her posts this AI had been able to read first, to say, okay, so she needs, for us to see if we can affect her mood, she needs to see animal abuse type videos and posts coming up.
Yeah, was she a frequent user of Facebook?
Yeah, very much
Okay,
so.
yeah.
Very much so.
I did a
And she,
video on that
yeah,
about a year
well,
ago.
she'd actually gone to the doctors during that time and had gone on some medication for
Oh,
feeling so
really?
low. And I'd said that is so abusive, that they've been a catalyst to cause something that she, at the time, I remember the conversation, she couldn't put her finger on why she was so low. She's worked with rescuing animals for years, so she's used to seeing, not used to, but well versed in seeing abuse cases, and the heartbreak of when it works and when it doesn't, to see either way at the end of the story. And so you wonder how much of her posts had absolutely been looked at, because she would video the journey of whatever animal she was rescuing and show the progression, or the happy ending or the sad ending, but the process indeed. So, and she'd looked back, and that sure enough, she'd been seeing abuse post after. So to her mind, the whole world had turned dark. To
Hmm.
her mind, her biggest trigger points of animal abuse, the whole world had gone crazy, because in her mind, the whole world, she was on Facebook so much, it was all of a sudden there was just such a spike in her mind of animal abuse everywhere from all corners of the country, that then made it so that she went physically to a doctor's to physically get some medication, and to have to think she had to have medication that she then had to wean off. And so it'd been an experiment. They called it a social experiment.
It's called social engineering, actually. And Michelle, you're right. Someone's
It's
writing in the
very
chat room.
dark.
Well, it's more than just dark. It's it again, people don't want to think about this. And what we're talking about today is about spirits that are left behind, because what you just described is this is MK Ultra at its best. Facebook, these tech companies are not givers of gifts, they are enslavers. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I tell people all the time, when you die, you're still going to be alive and here.
Yeah.
Um, there are already ample evidence that they have literally, it, let me digress here. Someone's going to say, there's a Steiger thing. When the camera was first invented, and they went to the tribes in the Amazon forest, the natives basically killed the person with the camera because the natives believed that if you could capture their image, you just captured their soul.
Yeah.
Now, you carry this forward where today we are, I wish people could really see what's going on. There are tubes that are in all of us.
Yeah.
And just because you can't see it, but these tubes are electromagnetic in nature.
Mhm.
And once they get, they're like spines. Once they get in, it's very difficult. And you can see this. The kids today, they learn by computer.
And don't you find when you were to, I know exactly the spines that you're seeing in your mind's eye right now, almost like when you put things into plaster, like shelving like this, you'll get those things that they go in and then they splay out to stop coming back out again
Yes.
for dry walls.
Yeah.
And
Anchor
so,
bolts.
yeah, and so that's what I've just pictured in my mind. Now, I know my 10-year-old is tech crazy, and we have to moderate that. Now, you pull his time from his electric world and bang, you're pulling out one of those dry screw wall things out of his, but it hurts. He screams out in pain, and it's like he's feeling physical pain over me pulling that cord and saying, no, time for family just now, William. You know, come on. But no, it can spiral, and you can, and he's holding his head. There's pain everywhere. His
Oh,
nerves
is
are
he
on
really?
fire. No, I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
picture that.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I'm pulling out one of those cords that I see, and it makes me feel really perturbed as a parent when I do that and have to say, William, you haven't looked up from that screen. Or William, you're arguing with your friends right now because you haven't had time out from this world. We're going outside. You're going to bounce on
Good,
the
good, good.
trampoline. You're going to do this. But he feels, you would think I'd burnt him. You would think I'd
Yeah.
physically burnt him or physically pulled. And I am physically pulling him from a world that he's got such prongs inside of him of that no rhyme or reason. And once he's outside, you can see the child comes back, he breathes the throat, he gets grounded and centered, and he's good again. It doesn't take him long, thankfully. But you see how a lot of people are describing now as parents this addiction to tech, in that they're describing these behavioral meltdowns when they're having to do what I've just described, and what, as you described, pulling one of those cords that beforehand we were dealing with, just not just, but energetic cords,
Yeah.
sexual
Yeah.
cords. But now we've got this extra layer that is so hardwired in. Um, it's a crazy thought,
Our
actually.
dear,
It really is.
our 2-year-old granddaughter has this strange uh, addiction. I call it addiction. She collects remote controls, and she'll steal them from other people's houses. And when they take them away from her, she tells them, "No, I need this. I need this." And it's very interesting to see because they raised her on technology. Most
Yeah.
parents do today. They have the screen in the cribs, And it's this crazy blue light that our eyes aren't perceiving here. This is a blue light that they have shown it's the same light required for hypnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that stops you from getting into a deep sleep too.
Oh, yes, it do.
I've discussed this with William so much because he wants it on in the background and when he's
Mm.
going to sleep, and I'm like, baby, you can't.
No,
You're
no.
not. You're saying you want to sleep to it. You physically cannot sleep to it. You can't sleep with it. You might close your eyes. You might feel like you have, but you will not be sleeping. Well, I will. No, you won't, William. And so, but and you know, I've taken plugs off William's things to go to the extent to where he won't sneak awake and put it back on. And have his volume really low, but it's almost like a comfort blanket to him.
I'm
It's
just reading in
strange.
the chat room, people are agreeing with you that this is disturbing to hear you describe this because it
Mm,
happens everywhere. A lot of the millennials that I know, and even the Xers, they live with their iPhone on, you know,
mm.
and the iPad. And this is my take on it. It was an invasion that we didn't resist.
No,
We
no,
opened
we
our arms
didn't.
to it, said, "Come on, baby."
And we still do. And like you say, regarding the regarding the complacency, and that was the other thing I was going to bring up, sorry. Regarding the, and then I'll get back to the topic that you mentioned, but regarding the reaction of the code going crazy, to me, that makes sense to something my daughter Abigail was discussing with me either this morning or yesterday. And she's a horse whisperer. She's fantastic at animals and listening to what animals need. But she was so she's always researching different things. And we were talking about perceptions and what we perceive and what we jump on. And she'd given herself a bit of a shake because she very much had advocated, and she's only 20, you know, she's still very young. And so she'd said, I've given my head a wobble, Mum. And I said, what about? And she'd said, well, you know, I advocate for this and that. And she'd said, I totally got washed away with the protect the bull breed thing. And I'd said, okay. And she said, well, I still stand by the fact it is just like any child, it's the carer of the animal that has the biggest impact. She'd said there are too many things to ignore that would say, for whatever reason, the bull breed and most dogs don't show their true nature and maturity till after 2. And she'd said the difference is, you know, I was just so eager to be on this train of protect the bull breed. It's all about the carer. And she said, but it's not, because of the power they've got behind them. It is a very different scenario till taking a chance on a small dog or a dog that is much bigger but hasn't got the pressure bite point she was describing and the particular action that they make when they do bite down, and pain threshold that actually even if you hurt them when they do attack, the adrenaline is much quicker to get there and long lasting than a lot of other breeds. So they're very hard to stop unless you have a gun to hand or anything like that. And she'd said, I realized, you know, that the guy who actually started off Protect the Bull breed was a guy who was a big dog fighter. And so
Mm.
he had an agenda who it served him to protect the fact that we didn't sterilize bull breeds and that they were still encouraged that we had them. And she'd said, so now by no means does that mean we just decide to wipe that out, but because of his agenda and a few other people's agenda and just knowing how to plug the market to have people like me in a wave, it means that all of the facts that do keep families safe when they're deciding upon a breed of dog, or other schemes that I'll mention next, she'd said it means that the real facts to make that informed decision and give informed consent to the weighing up of, right, I have young children, I'm at work this time, this breed would be good because of, she said, all of those facts get swayed by this wave of people marching to defense of the bull breed, all from an agenda from a guy who was harming them most. And so she brought that up, and then she had said, because what came of it from their mum was that they had a scheme that they've had to discontinue now in America, where they were particularly finding that veterans that had been injured or had PTSD or both, obviously still had the very strong military energy, so that they thought they would be really well suited to bull breeds. And so and it gives a lot of surplus bull breeds that are now in the without homes a safe place to be, where they have the authority figure of that strong energy, and it'll help with the PTSD. And they realized that the animals, this particular breed, was picking up and absorbing, just like we were mentioning with the computer, the energy of the person, the veteran that they were with, who had PTSD, and over a very short period of time started to get triggered. Instead of helping the person with PTSD, got affected by having PTSD themselves, these dogs. And of course, when they were attacking, it wasn't the same as just another dog breed attacking. It was very brutal, very strong. And so for some reason, they were absorbing that too, instead of them equalizing each other out. And so I had a much better point to get to with that.
Yeah, I'm a little lost here, but I'm trying.
It's the absorption of, I think, where the triggered
We're not advocating
mentality.
a breed, by the way.
No, we're not. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
It was a not advocating. That's what Abby was saying, and that we get swept away with all of the good in things, because I think humans in general want to be excited and happy and good and find solutions. Computers and the internet give us so much of that, but because it's faceless, we forget why there was safety things in place. We forget why there was barriers in place. And now that this code is, like you say, has the ability to go crazy, for want of a better word, and have maybe a breakdown, for want of a better word, you wonder how much now we are balancing that out in each other, like these dogs and these veterans, as in, instead of calming the nerves or calming society, is it aggravating the worst conditions? Because if we are relying so much on this AI that can very easily, as you described, have a PTSD type of meltdown, then how much of are the meltdowns actually ours, or the codes, and how much then, which side of it is it coming from, and where do we decide how to stop that now? Because
I don't think you can stop it. It's integrated into the machine, us. And, I think, just by the way, I just want to say, David Castle, it's good to see you, my friend. We are so glad that you are back with us. Teresa, also card decks. She's needing some selfies. Those who are waiting on this. Jill says she's on the beach listening. I'm glad to hear that. So getting back to how because the thing that I look at this, and the big red flag for myself where we are today, it's like last night I didn't watch the debates. That is prime programming for people that get into politics. And the problem that I see today is a direct correlation to our addiction to technology. Today, we are a society that is on the verge of literally self-annihilating each other.
Yeah.
When I lived in the 70s, it was not a real fun time in America. It was before you were born. And I remember, the marches, the civil rights marches in Selma, Alabama, down in Birmingham, and then I remember seeing LA on fire. And I can remember as well that Harlem was a place you didn't go if you were
Yes.
not of a different color.
Yes.
And Times Square was nothing but hookers, peep shows, and it was a very depressing time.
Really.
I see today we are even beyond what it was in the 70s. We have become that we are so easily the servitors. I did a show on the fact that you can create servitors literally that can serve you. If you're a good witch, you know how to do that as well. But my point is, we have now come into a time where everyone is on edge.
Yeah.
And here's the point. It's all connected to this internet.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is right. Um, the neural net is here.
Yeah, it is.
Your little boy will most likely grow up where he will eventually be implanted, where he will have what they call a BIM, that's brain interface to the machine.
Okay.
My concern about that is that once they get in our head, because as your friend watching Facebook, right?
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
she began to notice that her energy was low. And unbeknownst to her, she was being programmed by Facebook. As you said, she went back, looked at her past history, and said, "Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. This is exactly 180 of what I am."
Yeah.
So you can see that I think that her depression, and by the way, depression is the second stage of possession.
Yes, it is.
My question that we don't ask ourselves, Jennifer, is that how many of, all right, I'll just say this, how many of us are possessed?
Well, I think quite a few.
Yes, thank you.
I think quite a few. I don't pull punches around that. I think quite a few, and I'm seeing. I see more children. I work with energy,
You do.
as you know, and I work as we all do. But it's just a skill set that I've had from
Yeah.
being young, um, so it's more heightened in me um, than some of the other skill sets that other people have that I've got none of. And so, but I've
Yeah, don't
noticed,
give me a
and
pendulum because I'm like, good word.
yeah, it swings back. As controversial as it is, uh, I worry that for over the last 3 years in particular,
Okay.
that I see a lot of children that I do not see the same auras that I see around
Hmm.
other children, or that I predominantly saw in most children
Pray tell, can you
beforehand.
get a little bit more into that?
Yeah, there's nothing there. It doesn't feel like there's anything there.
How interesting,
It
Jennifer.
doesn't feel like there's anything there. And just like the dog thing, and I try and be careful about what I say, but then I'm being disingenuous to not say exactly what's on my lips as and when I say it. And there are some children, more than I would like to see over the last 3 years, increasing, where there is nothing there. I do not feel like there is a soul attached. I do not feel that
Wow.
way. Um,
This is
I
phenomenal.
don't
Keep
see the
talking, dear.
colors. I don't see the colors. I don't see. Um, the rays, I don't see the sparks flying from them, and when I look behind their eyes, I do not see a soul the way that I recognize for all of my life the ability to be able to see souls. I don't. And I would love to hook these children up to some kind of monitor to monitor it for other people to see what I'm not seeing, to see some kind of huge sways in colours on, and to see the electromagnetism. Now I know there's electromagnetism coming from them, but for every other electromagnetic being, I see evidence of that. I can feel evidence of that. I always have been able to, and I do not. And I could see some adults like that, of course. Few
Yeah.
adults I could
I
see.
have friends in law enforcement that
But
have written me.
children are happening
That,
in increasing numbers, and I just wonder if the need for a soul is maybe being written out. Is the need to have this vessel animated and puppet stringed by some kind of attachment to an expansive soul? Is it being slowly but surely, just like they've been doing with genetics for a long time, everything reflecting in on everything? Have they been finding a way to slowly but surely wring it out? The need for it.
there is, and I'm just reading this now, but so there is the follow-on evidence of the abductions that we began to see in earnest as we begin to see the phenomenon taking place in the 50s that carried forth into even today. There are many women who, in abductions, have reported giving birth to their to a child. Now, there are those who believe that these hybrids that are now here amongst us, they have no soul. They
Oh,
didn't come from the same place. And as a result of this, their evidence, and this is very interesting because I quite frankly don't think that those in the ufology, abductions that we well know and have documented cases ever thought about other humans seeing auras around other human beings. I mean, it's kind of like the telling sign, are you a human or are you not?
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it
let's see
is
your
for me.
aura.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You are seeing it, and I'm just reading in here. Papa Joe says he as well. Yes. This, Jennifer, this is phenomenal because it's amazing. The show, you have one direction, but what you have brought up is so, it's disturbing because these children, would you say that they are technically adapted to technology?
Yes, yeah. Because yeah, yes, I do. Because they can not. Some of them cannot string two sentences together. Yet they can navigate an iPhone. They can navigate. They have no emotional intelligence whatsoever. Yet they can emotionally make decisions emotionally in a game to decide to shoot something or get they can seem to put emotions and intelligence through something, but ask them to write a free thought, ask them to write a poem about their emotions, their own being, their own take on life, and nothing there. There's nothing there. They have no connections to animals, the ones that I'm noticing, in that, most children I see, even if they're nervous of, say, dogs or cats, or have one or two
Mm-hmm.
animals that they're naturally nervous of, you put a certain amount of animals in front of any said child and they're going to go gooey. You're going to hit
Oh, yeah.
jackpot at some point. Even if it's reptiles, there's kids who adore reptiles and there's kids who are terrified of cats and vice versa.
Yep.
But you're going to hit lucky. There's such a vast array of animals, and you're going to hit lucky that a childlike energy is very similar to one or the other species of animals that they can sort of relate themselves into. These
Excellent.
children know, no, there's nothing there, and which is a difficult thing, and I find a challenging thing
I'm
because
just reading what the chat room is saying. People
yeah,
are,
because to me that is a very and this is, sorry, because I do go off in different directions,
that's
but
all right.
to me this is a very, very clever this is a very clever weapon potentially against human race, because who can look at a child in a child's body, just like, you know, how people say they knew it wasn't a nice energy, but they heard a child's voice,
Mm-hmm.
or they heard a voice saying, "Mommy, help me, Daddy, help me, please help me," but they knew the energy felt so dark. To me, that's a trick in a lot of cases. But, you know, what more of a trick than to see that, you know, we have these children playing amongst other children. We have them not having the same reactions. Yet as adults, we are still keyed in to want to serve and protect any child that we see that looks like this physically, you know. It's a very strategic way of getting away with a lot of stuff.
Well, it's the classic, you know, children of the damned. That, in fact, it's very interesting that we're even talking about this because it was on Turner Classics, the original, and the whole premise was that these children, um, say whatever you want, how they came about, they were not, they didn't have the same soul that we do.
No.
And that was the premise of the movie, that the children themselves could communicate telepathically because they, through genetics, were superior to us.
Right.
And now here we have, you see, my mind goes and says, now, wait a minute. This is a perfect, this is a perfect invasion, next level.
Yeah.
We have hybrids that are now walking among us, and I want to get more into the research even after this is done. I'll send you an email.
Oh,
I
fab.
have a professor that I know would love to pick up on this. This is in a lot of the universities now, this type of research is becoming very interesting. And the reason why, and you said something that really sparked into my psyche, was that there's no way to detect. And I went, how interesting. No way to detect. What if we were to begin to find out 30, 40, 50% of all souls being born in the last 30 years were not us?
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me also, because, and I'm excited for whatever you send over. I'll digest anything like that as well, because it's a relief to say it out loud. You know, I speak to people that I know can take it in private over the years. My mum's gotten used to being able to take me,
When
you
they
know,
don't get
over
up
the
and
years.
walk away going,
Yeah, oh
uh-huh.
Jenny, okay, all right, all right. She's on one of those days, you know. And my mum, as I say, has gotten very good at either rolling the eyebrows or saying, she's right. And
Well,
so
isn't that what moms do, though?
exactly. But
Exactly.
then she has come up, she was a nursery nurse for many years, and being from a large family herself too, that, you know, she has experienced both in a family setting with a lot of children all at one time, and also then in a professional setting, you know, with a lot of different children, different families all at one time, and seeing some of the differences that I'm starting to see now. And I'm coming back to you, do you remember you started saying that and I said you were being nasty, and I would say there's nothing behind the eyes, and she thought I was being nasty, but knew me that there's no nasty place that I would say anything like that. But it perturbed me because it was something that I could not understand the way I'd managed to understand so many. And even I've come across very few adults that way. Now, the very few adults I've come across that way are, to me, they're broken in some kind of way, that their aura is very small. they're not giving out a huge frequency, you know, but it's still there. It's still there.
Yeah,
Dim, but there.
I grew up in a what I don't know what you would call it over in England. I guess it's would be a state home
Oh, care
for
home.
an abused
Care home.
and okay, and you know there were on the boys' side there were over 100 boys, and on the girls' side at least that much, and we all come from being abused.
Mm.
And as children, I can remember there abused children have a sense of bonding, because you have that sense of commonality. And even the ones that are a little twisted because of the pain. And I'm saying that in reference today because have we taught them that? I mean, this goes off the fact that and I'm calling these the dark children, that they have no auras around them. Jennifer, it's troubling again, I keep saying this, on
Well,
a very
can I
deep
give
level.
you, yeah, can I give you personal, being very careful because now I'm well versed at telling this, in that I had a family member, uncle from an estranged uncle from my dad's side, reach out to me. I didn't really know him very well, but reach out to me because he was going to be receiving care of his child, and that otherwise the care system was going to take him in. Now, cutting a very long story short, because the care system over here isn't good, it was set
It's
up
not a
for
shining star over here either.
no, it was set up for malevolence and still aids malevolence.
Yep.
And so, but staying out of that part of it for another time, I got in receipt of this little boy, who immediately I set to work. He was very, very overweight, which was making him physically uncomfortable. It was part of the abuse. And so it was making him very, very uncomfortable physically, skin conditions and everything. And we set that to fun straight away. And I found out this little dot liked salads, of all things. Nobody had bothered to ask him that he didn't actually like greasy food. He liked salads. So when I was trying to think of all these weird and wonderful things, getting ahead of myself with charts and all sorts, of how I would fix this, when I stopped and asked the little boy, is there anything I can put in a smoothie for you, or anything at all, anything you would fancy? What do you like? Because I was getting to know this boy. He was sort of dumped. And so it was like, I love a salad. And I was like, Jenny, should have just asked him in the first place. So everything salad got wheeled out of the cupboards and out of the fridge, and like, come on, you show me which ones you like. And he was very unanimated. Now, at the start of all of this process, I'd said to my mum, he's one of them. And she'd said, Jenny, elbowed so hard. And I said, no, he's one of them. And she'd said, Jenny, he's just abused. He's very abused. And obviously she has a lot of child psychology in her background, and understood that something she described to me as frozen child syndrome. When they've been frozen in certain abuses, they put such a shell up, and they can put layers and layers up. So I felt awful for saying it. And I was like, but something deep down in me knew that I was right. I was not seeing an aura, and I understood what she was saying, but it didn't wash, but at the same time felt bad just in case it did wash, just in case she was right. You waving to Wayne and everybody? Good boy. So I went with it, and she described this frozen child thing, which broke my heart. And so this little boy, very unanimated, yet he could get on an iPhone, and he arrived. No clothes that fit, no nothing, but he had an iPhone, a PlayStation, an Xbox, a pad, and a laptop. And I said, is this the priority here? And so, of course, I wasn't comfortable with the certain things like the phone, and social services said, oh, no, let him keep it, otherwise he'll kick off. And I said, not in this house, he won't. I'll tell him not to. But they said, you know, they keep things, and it said for a few weeks, and then it's my rules or no, you know, my rules. And so this went on for a little while, and this little boy was giving me such an awful feeling, and I went through such guilt because I thought, I know abuse, I know this frozen child, and by this point I'd started reading up on everything that I could, and thinking, Jenny, this is not like you. You should have such empathy here. But I was nervous of this boy. And obviously not wanting this boy to pick this up from me at all. Trying to transmute this as quickly as possible. And one day I just went into the room and said, give me the phone. No, give me the phone. No. Long story short, it turned out that that little boy was heading up a big ring.
Whoa.
He was going after children, poised.
Ah.
A big Liverpool gang got sent to prison because of it. He was going out as a little assassin, and he was getting the addresses, the ages, whether they walked home alone or not, and it turned into a huge big case spanning miles. Now, yeah, no word of an exaggeration. And so at that point, I'd said to my mum, "I told you." And it turned out that he had no empathy. There was no empathy. We went through police counselling, we went through police interviews. At that point, the police saying my children were in danger through this, so we had to start to transition to get him to be given to his father. Now, there was the police officer, the reason I go into that, and again, nothing personal was shared for this little boy, and it is a young adult now, so I can speak on it now. I've kept quiet about it for years, just for that, to still protect. But the reason I say that is because these police officers were so perturbed by this, because they had a special team just for that, you know, of children that were affected, and they were so perturbed by them not even out, even after all of the clever counselling that they know how to do, and not being in police clothes, and all of the tricks and traits of how to get some empathy from this little boy, some understanding from this little boy, failed. And so much so that it really perturbed one of these officers, that she started to cry, because me and her had to video it, from me as his guardian, video it while he was in with the counsellor stroke police officer. And she had to take notes furiously, as well as have the video evidence, you know, in real time.
Right.
And she became so perturbed by the fact that she wasn't feeling empathy towards this boy, because of the cold and calculated way that he was describing it, and there was just zero understanding. Yet you put that boy, and it turned out when they took his things and cut open the suitcase, there was 7 of those hard drive things that they'd said a big office would have struggled to fill up space on, all with details. This had been going on for a long time, well before he came to me. So I think that to wrap that up for you is that even within now, in our present day, in that context, children without the empathy and soul level that we are used to becomes very dangerous ground, because these other children absolutely just trusted giving their details and in normal conversation.
Yep.
And so it is something to very, very seriously consider, and the ramifications of it are huge.
Well, and I think there's more to this, and you know, it's a question as how long this has been going. You know, there are certain pagan beliefs that, you know, it's interesting. I don't want to talk about it right at the moment, but this is really interesting, because it could be systemic of what we're seeing today. There are those that I call the true agitators of the collective consciousness of mankind that are really stirring the pot. And then there's this huge silent majority that's not speaking at all.
Yeah.
And they're not really aware of what's really going on. Well, Jennifer, every time I have you on, it is fascinating. We'll get tomorrow and what I was going to cover today, but this,
Sorry.
no,
We
I
went
mean,
totally round the bend.
that is the beauty of the format, is that this was important and
It is.
it's
It's something
huge.
for people to be aware of. It is. And as far as past lives, I think this thing in front of me now has many of my past lives already in it before I've transitioned anywhere. You
Yeah,
know, I've been many me's that could be brought up on this thing for all eyes to see, you know, right now
yeah.
that aren't me at all anymore, but they're there, like you say, lasting.
We're
So
going to talk more about this.
yeah,
Big
absolutely.
Al, I'm trying to see, what did you just say, brother? Please invoke that myself and Perry keep our southern route. AI is trying to change our lane. Well, all right, we're just going to collectively say that ain't happening. You're
Stay
going
in
to
your
keep that
lane,
route.
Al.
You and Perry and and Jennifer, there's that thing with the cards. So, Al, we're going to believe that, and I expect to see.
Yeah,
Someone said this is really heavy. Yeah, it is. It's a heavy because this is some stuff, folks,
yeah.
that humans don't like to think about this.
No, I'm sorry as well. I do bring things up out
Well,
of
no, no,
nowhere, but
no. I don't mean in that. I mean, this is
yeah,
something that we need to think about. We think we're so sovereign that no alien species would not see the beauty of this life planet that we live on and say, well, listen, we can't go down there and wipe them all out. What if
especially as no human species that we are so sovereign and divine that we'll go out and pay hand over fist to have them come in and take over.
yeah,
That's so
exactly.
clever. Yeah, it's so
So what
clever that
do? Well, you start breeding the hybrids. And
yeah,
it's so interesting. We'll get more on this. I know we've gone over.
okay.
Miss Jennifer, thank you, hon. We'll see you on Friday, right?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I love coming round. Wave,
Okay.
wave me
We need to
goodbye.
get Jennifer's card. Um, they say you're shy.
Oh, what
I
for?
think they want you to put you on the deck of cards with the rest of the tribe.
I wasn't being shy. I just felt I didn't realize what Teresa was mentioning in the chat when I
That's what she's
pointed her
mentioning.
to two things, and I haven't got chat up today, so I didn't get distracted because I know I was answering people's questions in chat last Friday, and then I realized I think I answered different questions to different people, and so I got the email, but there's text being on and off over here, to be honest. But I didn't realize it was for Brian, who you
Yeah,
guys
it's the
have
Brian Soul deck.
transitioned, and I didn't know I didn't know if it was I didn't know if it would be a bit disingenuous, you know, to
Mm-mm.
because it's something so special. So that's what I was
You're a
trying
part
to
of
put
us.
across in the
Brian
email.
would love
So
he loves you. And if when he was here physically, he'd have had you on, I can tell you. Yeah,
bless him.
guarantee it.
Well, but yeah, so respect to Brian. It would just I wasn't being quick
Nope.
in chat. I just had to say replies quickly, and then I'm thinking I'm sure I answered the
You're
wrong
one of
question
us.
there.
I mean, there's no
I'm happy
leaving. I'm
to
just
stay.
telling you. There's just no
I'm quite happy to stay. I'm quite happy to stay, aren't we? Yeah, we are. Thank you so much, Wayne. I appreciate it every time you have me.
Oh,
And I love coming on a Friday, and
well, I
so
love
I
having
love
you,
the
and so
crowd.
does
So
everybody else.
and so
All right,
sorry
I
I
put
went
all
on for.
Jennifer's information there. Subscribe, go over. She does a daily show, and it's I tell you, folks, I've seen these Friday shows now. We got a talented group. I mean, the affirmations just over and over and over again. Jennifer, you have a very special gift, dear.
Oh,
Thank
thank you.
you. I see. All right, Jennifer. We will see
Bye.
you later real soon. Okay.
Okay.